and welcome. My name is James. Welcome from the budding rural metropolis of Owen Sound, located snugly in the northern half of northern southwestern Ontario. My name is James, and I'm your host today. Welcome to the VAWMA podcast. Today is episode 9, and today we're going to be talking a little bit about autonomy and independence within cooperatives and how we wish to apply that within our VAWMA project. VAWMA, for those of you who are joining us for the first time, hello and welcome. My name is James. VAWMA is the Voluntary Association for Work and Mutual Aid. That is an acronym, and we pronounce it as VAWMA. VAWMA is an idea that has been percolating around inside of me since before the pandemic began. When I started asking myself the question, what can I do to earn a living in order to make a life worth living? And I started coming up with a bunch of business ideas, and as I was coming up with business ideas, I was struggling with how do I do business ethically, and how do I do this in such a way that I don't screw over my friends who I'm getting into business with. How can I do this in a way where everybody walks away with a slice of the pie? And that eventually got me wandering down roads, dark channels on YouTube, falling down different rabbit holes of like, how can I accomplish my dreams without screwing people over? And I don't remember how, but I got onto a lecture by a fellow by the name of Richard Wolff, who's a professor of economics, and he started talking about, he introduced me to the idea of a worker-owned cooperative. And ever since then, like, something inside of me clicked as he described the relationship between workers, labor, and how we produce things, how we create things, and who gets to control what it is that we create with the power of our labor and our skills. And it just makes sense to me that the people who are working at a business, that are controlling the basically should be the ones in control of the business. It's not how it's set up in our society in general. And so I got to thinking about, well, what if it was? How would we do it? And now we're kind of at a place, here we are with VAWMA, where we start with some very basic reasoning that first off, we're an intentional community of friends that are coming together to check in with each other and make sure that everybody's okay. We're going to start with a philosophy that mutual aid is going to be baked into the heart of who we are and what we do and how we do things. And mutual aid, not charity. We don't want to create like a power dynamic where people, look up to us and expect us to do things for them. We want to create a lateral relationship where we become a tool that people can use in order to build a life worth living for themselves. And to that end, let me remember to turn the house music off. There we go. That'll probably be a little less intrusive for everybody involved. So VAWMA starts as a mutual aid network of friends coming together and recognizing that the second thing that we are is a group of laborers. We are people with skills, with talents. Some of us even have resources, tools, money, stored away, something that can be turned into whatever it is that we need in order to run a business. And some of us have the know-how about what to do with those tools once we get them. And some of us have a vision for how it is that we can get from point A to point B. And the trick is to get everybody to come together so that we can all work together for the ends of what it is that we're looking for, which of course is to create, as I said before, a life worth living. So mutual aid society, coming together, friends checking in on each other, making sure that everybody's okay. And then we move to being recognizing that we are essentially a natural union of laborers, people who primary offering is their skill, their ability to do stuff, to transform raw materials into something that we can then sell and then sell them. And in order to sell them, we're going to have to create a business that sells things. And when we set that up, we're going to set it up in such a way that it's what we call a cooperative. And we're going to be talking a little bit about how a cooperative functions, maintaining its autonomy and independence as we do so a little bit today. And sorry, just keeping track of time. To do that, we create cooperative businesses. And cooperative businesses are just a way of saying that everybody who is connected to this business, either they're a worker or they, in our particular case, they're a consumer. So they have their relationship to the businesses as a consumer. They come and they buy stuff from us. As a worker, your relationship to the business is you come to the business and you open up the shop. You make sure the lights are on. You make sure nobody walks away with the stuff that we're trying to sell, and make sure that everybody pays their fair share for what it is that we have on sale. And those are the two kind of people that we have invested in our workplace for now. We may introduce a couple of other member classes as we go along today. We'll see how far we get and how much time we have at the end. But suffice to say, for the worker cooperative, every member, every person, as much as possible, it is voluntary. We're not going to force you to be a part of us. But if you want to be, we would love to have you. And we're going to try to make the barrier for entry as reasonable and easy as possible for everybody. But we want to have you be a part of what it is that we're trying to build. And in doing so, we're also going to introduce some perks of and benefits of being an owner. If you're a community member or a dedicated member, you're going to get discounts, based on, what we would sell to people who aren't members, but we're still going to try and make some money. We're not going to dig a hole so deep we can't get out of it. That's not the purpose of what it is that we're trying to do here. Rather, we're trying to create and build a network of these cooperatives, businesses that again are run cooperatively with the people that have an ownership in it, a stake in it. In this case, community members and dedicated members. Community members are our customers. Dedicated members are the people working the business. It's kind of fairly simple in that regard. And finally, what we are is we're not just one, the vision and the scope of VAWMA is that we won't be one singular business. Rather, we will be a network of cooperative businesses, all pooling the resources together, but all kind of acting autonomously and independent of each other, while at the same time coming together to pool what it is they make and then share it between everybody who helped make it. It's a very holistic, holistic vision. It's a way, and this is one of the other driving philosophies kind of at the heart of the VAWMA vision, and that is looking at the news, especially recently. We have persons like Galen, who owns a series of grocery stores across Canada, and is currently making just money hands over fist while the rest of us are languishing. From my perspective, what it looks like is that here you have a person, a man, who is extracting from every local economy across Canada wealth that otherwise could be distributed amongst their local economies and reinvested in the forms of people buying more stuff, driving up demand, hopefully increasing supply, and hopefully bettering our local economy as well. And of course, to help meet supply, we would do what we can to spread the VAWMA vision as far and wide as possible in order to create networks of different cooperatives that are there to meet each other's needs. We'll eventually get to point number 6 of the 7 cooperative principles, which is cooperation amongst cooperatives, and from there we'll talk a little bit about what VAWMA could be in the network of different cooperative businesses that are out there in the world, and how VAWMA can utilize some of the existing networks that are out there. And who knows, maybe we'll have a special guest come in and speak with us for that particular thing there. Just spitballing. We'll get to that when we get to it. But for now, that's kind of the VAWMA vision in a nutshell. We are a group of friends checking in with each other, making sure that everybody's okay, while at the same time recognizing that our labor is our primarily what we have to offer with regards to where we're starting. And starting with our labor, we then pool together what resources we do have in terms of skills, in terms of material resources, and we start our first business, a cooperative. And as we start that business and it becomes successful, knock on wood, we will then expand and become many cooperative businesses, all working together, all helping each other out. And that's the vision for VAWMA, is to take a community of people and have build enterprises that are worker-directed, community-owned, ending precarious work, and being there for the community, taking the what is created at the end, and instead of extracting it to places like Bay Street or Wall Street, where it is then extracted to other places in the world like the Caymans or Panama, and instead, those millions upon millions of dollars that are extracted from our local economy, as much as possible stays within our local economy and gets spread around between everybody who helped make it, from our consumers, our customers, to the workers who helped make it all possible in the first place. Yeah. And today we're going to be talking a little bit. Last week we talked about member economic participation. The week previous we talked about member democratic control. And the week before that we talked about open membership. This week we're going to be talking a little bit about autonomy and independence. We're going to go into all that stuff there. And I was hoping to do this actually a little bit before I got into all this, but my brain being the way it is, it's a little disorganized. And I just wanted to take a moment here just to acknowledge and say thank you to Kat, who was our co-host for the VAWMA podcast. We were talking last night, and she let me know that she was going to be taking a step back from co-hosting with the podcast. She's focusing on growing and establishing her business, her vision, Live with Advantage, and I'm really excited for her and what it is that she's doing. I think it's incredibly valuable, and it certainly was for me. It was instrumental in getting me to this place where I'm created. Well, I should say we created this podcast. The podcast wouldn't exist without Kat. So for that, I'm incredibly grateful and thankful. And would just like to say and express and wish Kat well. If you're interested in following her, you can find her at Live with Advantage. I'm not too sure if she has a YouTube channel, but she definitely has a Twitch channel where you can check that out. You can Google search her and be sure to follow and subscribe. She's almost at affiliate, if not at affiliate at this point. And again, we wish her well. So today, and actually, let's just take a moment to just do a quick recap of what we did last week, and with regards to the member economic participation. And so for that, I'm just I should have done this before screen, so be patient with me. Running everything by my lonesome here today. Oh look, it is set up. Excellent. So Um, I'm hanging out over here. If you can see me, I'm over on this side, on the I guess it's the right hand side of the screen. And last week we were talking about member economic participation. This was kind of like the final idea that we had for everything with our several different member classes. We have our community members, our union members, dedicated members, and possible producer members. This one is still kind of like in the maybe in the future we may have a something that we call a producer member that might function something like this. Not too sure, but it's been part of the conversation that we've been having behind the scenes with various people, so we're gonna include it for now. But the quick recap is community members, their buy-in is $300 a year, or $25 a month, because again we want to make the barrier for entry as low as possible, and $25 a month is less than $1 a day, less than a cup of coffee a day if you spread it out over the course of a month. And now I don't want to deprive you of coffee. I might deprive you of a donut, and conveniently enough, community membership is less than the cost of a donut a day. So, now life might not be as sweet at first, but as we continue to invest in what it is that we're doing, we're going to see that it will grow and become something eventually that will produce a surplus. And when we produce a surplus, we will then divide that surplus up amongst different things. Now, I put taxes up here first. The reality is, I've taken several different courses on cooperatives now, and one of the things that I still don't have answered in my mind is, at what point exactly does the business pay income tax? And some sources I've read seem to indicate that patronage might be pre-tax income. So now I'm not 100% certain on that, so please don't quote me on that. But that's the impression that I've gotten from some of the sources that I've read. Is that something that they're calling patronage, which the way they talk about it leads me to believe is different than what I'm talking about with regards to like these kind of shares and stuff. So again, it's a little confusing, and I'm getting a little distracted. Too much inside baseball. Point of the matter is, we have a community member. They're paying $300 a year, or $25 a month. And then we've got dedicated members who are the next member class, and they're going to be paying, they actually pay $20,000 over the course of a lifetime. That's their buy-in in this specific scenario that we have here, in the business that we are imagining. And the business that we're imagining, just so you can understand how we get to that number, is we're proposing that we'd have a business that would cost us around, say, $500,000 to get started. $500,000 it's a big number, but it's an easy number to work with mathematically when we're doing napkin math. And for the purposes of this explanation, we're doing napkin math. And so we've got $500,000, and we're going to have 25 dedicated members to begin, because that's how many people it's going to require to operate this business on a consistent, regular basis. Make sure that there's enough people on the floor to answer and address any consumer or customer needs, as well as making sure that there are people in the back producing for the customers what it is that they're there to purchase. In our particular scenario business, it's 25 members. So you've got 25 members dividing 500,000 up between them, and that of course is a very easy number to come up with. That's $20,000 a piece. So that's where we get $20,000 from for the dedicated members they're buying. Now you've noticed I've put down here it's $2,000 a year. That's because we've given ourselves 10 years to pay that $20,000, pay into that $20,000. So 10 years to pay into $20,000 is $2,000 a year, or $166.67 a month. And that's what the dedicated member is looking to pay as a buy-in in order to be a part of this cooperative business. That's their buy-in. And of course, we got union members who are like dedicated members in that they can work at the business that we are creating, but they're also like consumer members in that their buy-in is only $300 for the year, and or $25 a month. So the barrier for entry is a lot lower to be a union member if you wanted to work at our cooperative than if you were a dedicated member. And why would anybody be a dedicated member when you can be a union member? Well, today we're going to get into that. And so VAWMA's organizational structure. And so we're going to be talking here today. So there are going to be a couple of natural points in the presentation here where I will kind of pause and look for community interaction. So if you have any questions about the presentation as I'm going along, please feel free to throw them into the chat there, and I will address them as best I can as we come to them. Yeah. Oh, speaking as we go, we do have a comment here from the chat here. Patronage may possibly be pre-tax income. Good to look into. Time to get another expert guest to grill. Absolutely. And in fact, when I was at my one of the courses I mentioned before, I'm in an active course right at the moment. We had a meetup last week after we did the podcast, and I was able to grill somebody who wasn't an expert in taxes and such as it relates to cooperatives, but is connected with people who are. They actually, the person I was talking to, he was a person who works with a community investment firm. Somebody that might be able to help us invest in, or might be able to invest in what it is that we're trying to do and get us off the ground. Very exciting. Nothing to do with the particular topic, though. So, getting back to it. Like I said, we're going to have a chance and opportunity for community interaction here as we go along. I see that we've got some here. Okay, thank you very much. So today we're going to be talking about autonomy and independence. And before I get too far into that, let me just bring this back here for a second because we've got a little write-up blurb that I like to read here to begin with. I'm going to put my glasses back on so I can read. But this comes from our friends at the Ontario Co-op Association, the Ontario Cooperative Association, I should say, who have made a series of different tools and things available to the public and for cooperatives to be used for this purpose, so long as you don't make any money off of it. And I don't believe I am right at the moment. We'll see if the podcast takes off and we get millions of viewers, in which case I'll be sure to connect with the Ontario Cooperative Association and make sure they know how much we appreciate them. But we're not there yet. So regardless, the point of the matter is they have some great tools that you can get off their website at ontario.coop. And on the 7 cooperative principles, and just to review, the 7 cooperative principles are voluntary and open membership for point 1, democratic member control is point 2, member economic participation is point 3, autonomy and independence is point 4, which is what we're going to be talking about today, education, training, and information, which we've kind of talked about a little bit already on the podcast, but we're probably going to review it again next week, just for good measure. We then have cooperations amongst cooperatives, which totally makes sense. And then we've got concern for community, which is the it's actually in addition to the cooperative principles. Originally, it was just the 6 cooperative principles, but concern for community is definitely something that I can get behind. And speaking of things that we can get behind, autonomy and independence, the Ontario Cooperative Association has this to say. Cooperatives are autonomous self-help organizations controlled by their members. If they enter into agreements with other organizations, including governments, or raise capital from external sources, they do so on terms that ensure democratic control by their members and maintain their cooperative autonomy. In many sectors, co-ops must enter into agreements with outside organizations to ensure that they can operate. For example, Not-for-profit housing co-ops often receive funding from the government to support their work. And some co-ops that have programs with large capital requirements, like those in the renewable energy sector, may enter into agreements with other companies or organizations in order to help them finance their projects. One way that co-ops can maintain their autonomy is to create policies or pass resolutions that indicate how the co-op's vision and mission will be used to guide decision making, or create guidelines about what types of partnership agreements or relationships are acceptable to the membership of the co-op. Now, this can include information on what types of companies the co-op is willing to have relationships with. So I guess the classic example would be we could work into our bylaws that we, if we were back in the 80s, that we wouldn't want to have do business with any companies that are based in apartheid South Africa, and free Nelson Mandela, and we could bake something like that into our bylaws, and then none of the cooperatives within our network would be obligated, permitted to do business with apartheid South Africa sort of idea. So with the idea of autonomy and independence, the basic takeaway that I'm taking away from the Ontario Cooperative Association here is that it's really important for cooperatives and for the members who sign up for a cooperative that we maintain the control that we're buying into. We're paying some very hard-earned money here. I don't have $20,000. I don't have $2,000, and I barely have $166 to my name. I probably don't even have that. So I'm going to be going out and trying to find some extra money to somehow top all this sort of thing up. So for that, the skin in my game, even though like financially it's not millions of dollars, it's a lot to me, and I want to be, for that skin in the game, I want to make sure that I am that I have a voice, that I have a say in what's going on. That's why I'm doing this. That's why I'm a part of all this. That's why I'm starting all this, is because I was tired of being a wage slave, really. And if I'm tired of being a wage slave, it stands to reason that everybody else is a wage slave is also tired of being a wage slave. So why don't we just create a way of doing things where none of us are wage slaves? All of us are part owners. All of us have a say. All of us have a stake in what's going on. And so to accomplish that, we return back to the organizational structure of how it is that we're going to do things. So to begin, we're going to be starting with the idea, our example business that we've been using. We're going to call it Cafe Libre, because why not? Sounds fun, sounds jolly, and seems like a good, fun idea. And we may call it something else. Canada's Cooperative Coffee Pub, probably not. But, whatever it is that we're going to be doing. And so we're going to start off with 25 dedicated members and as many community members as we can find. So remember, community membership is $300 a pop, and dedicated membership is $20,000 a pop, spread out over 10 years, so $2,000 a year, or $166 and change a month. The dedicated members are the people that are going to be running this business. And you notice I've set them up in a circle. We're going to take a page from Arthur of Camelot, who recognized that if you create a hierarchy, you immediately create a struggle between people who are above and people who are below. So rather than create that, we're going to put everybody on an equal playing field, and in that particular in this particular structure, it looks like a circle. A little in-facing, everybody can see each other. That's the idea. And so us 25 here, and I'm going to place myself over here on the dedicated member side, because that's where I like to be. And I'm going to be in like an old shoe. This is going to be my job. This is going to be what I do to build a living. And the community members, we are going to come together and we're going to start this business. Now, in Ontario and Canada and probably elsewhere in the world, when you start a business, the business has a small group of people that are in control of the money. Not everybody who's part owner can just go in and grab the company bank card and go withdraw money. Number one, the CRA gets a little nervous when you do that. And number two, so does everybody else who's a joint owner. So in order to make sure that nobody can just walk in and walk off with the money, we're going to gatekeep the money that we're centralizing behind some people that we can all agree that we all trust to safeguard and keep the money safe. And that's going to be our board of directors. And so everybody here is going to select the board of directors. And so we're going to start off, we're going to have, just for our labeling purposes, we're going to have a president, I guess. We're going to have a secretary. You can see down here we've got a little examples of a legend, if you will, of what things are. And then we've got a treasurer. And the treasurer is ultimately the person who holds the power of the purse. The secretary is the person who holds the minutes for all of our members, for everybody who's involved. So if you ever want to say, as a community member or as a dedicated member, if you're ever curious about what the bylaws say or what the policies are or what the voting record was on the board of directors, you would have the right to go to our secretary and say, hey, secretary, where the notes be at, and they'll be the ones that will have them. And so this creates our core of the board of directors. We're not done building the board of directors, but we're going to put a pin in that there for a second, because we're going to come back over here to the dedicated members. And in order to understand how we achieve autonomy and independence, you have to understand how our structure within the dedicated members works, because we're going to be using sociocracy, which is a form of democracy that is based on consent. So normally in most democratic systems, what you're looking for is to get a majority vote. And that majority vote, so 50% of the people plus one, get to decide what the 100% of the group does, irrespective if half of that group really doesn't want to do what the other half of the group does. So you could end up in a scenario, to keep things simple. Let's say we have 5 people, and 3 people want to do something, and 2 people of this 5-person group, let's say they're in a car, so they're carpooling. 3 people want to go to coffee shop A, and 2 people want to go to coffee shop B. In this scenario, the 3 people have decided that they wanted to go to coffee shop A, so they all go to coffee shop A, irrespective of the wishes of the 2 people that got outvoted. What sociocracy does is it introduces consent-based decision making. So in our scenario where we've got 5 people, we'll call 3 here and 2 here. Then they are going to, in addition to asking where everybody wants to go, so we've got 2 decisions. 3 people want to go to place A, 2 people want to go to place B. We also ask an additional question. Is place A a deal breaker for anybody? All right. For these 2, for at least one of them, let's say they have a dietary restriction, they're not able to order anything off the menu at place A, and that is a deal breaker for them. The rest of you can go, but this person is going to starve. And you know what? Because we're now operating on a consent-based thing, we're going to take that into consideration in our decision making. Now, as much as everybody wants to go to place A, none of them have any dietary restrictions with place B. And even though only 2 people wanted to go to place B, and 3 people wanted to go to place A, 4 people were okay with place A, but 1 person was not. Everybody is okay with place B, so we're going to end up going to place B. Because if we went to place A, yeah, it was majority rules. Yeah, mostly everybody would be okay with it. But everybody was okay with place B as well. And place B, everybody gets to order something off the menu. So we go with place B. That's the basis of sociocracy, of how we achieve consensus-based decision making. The objection was valid, so we took it into consideration. And at the end of the day, even though the majority wanted to go with A, place B was perfectly acceptable to everybody. And it is what we, and actually, place A was not acceptable for everybody who was in that car. So take that principle, and we're now going to apply it to how we're going to run our business. Sounds scary? It's okay. It's gonna make sense as we explain it a little bit. So we have one big, huge sociocracy circle. Now, in order to actually function, we're not going to go into how sociocracy plays out on a daily basis necessarily, but we're going to talk about when we do come to a decision about how we are going to do things as a policy, and we're all going to have an opportunity to have input. We're all going to have an opportunity to vote on it. We're all going to have an opportunity to voice our objections and then to address those objections until we get to the point where nobody has any objections and we can move forward. When we move forward, we're going to task somebody with the responsibility of implementing what it is that we've all come up with. And that person is going to be the leader. And in addition to having a leader whose job description it will be to implement the decisions that everybody has collectively agreed to, we're going to have a secretary whose job it is to keep track of all the decisions that we've come to, keep track of items that are brought up during the meetings, agenda points, things that, and to keep track of how people have voted, whether or not there were objections, what they were, how those objections were addressed, how people were able to get to a point where they could consent and proceed. And so in addition to, and that's the secretary, and they keep track of all the decisions for the members. And in addition to that, we would have, with a group this size, a facilitator. Somebody whose job it is to take people's concerns and make sure that they get on the agenda of the meetings that we have. Now, just as a little side note, when we're up and running, we'll get together at least once a month. We'll bake it into our business practices, where all 25 of us get together and we open up the hood of the car, so to speak, the hood of the business, the engine, so we can look at the engine. We can look at the policies that we're implementing in order to run the business on a daily basis. And we're going to take a look and see what works, what isn't, and if something is working, is there something we can do? Is there best practices that we can take into consideration? Is there something better that we can be doing? Are we getting feedback from our customers? Are we getting feedback from our community members? Are we getting feedback from other people on the floor who are having to carry out the policies and just saying, it's just not working for us? Whatever it is, the facilitator makes sure that if you have a concern as a member on the circle, that your concern gets on the meeting agenda and you have an opportunity to have it addressed. And then finally, just to bring this up here, we're going to have a delegate. So as you notice, this inner circle here, this cooperative executive, is actually part of this. I've put it here in the center just so we can have clear examples of what's going on here, and also to kind of recognize that during the work week, as we're open for business and as we're buying stocks so that we can then turn around and sell to our customers, surprises are going to happen. Curveballs are going to be thrown at us. A surprise bill is going to come in for $1,000 more than what we expected it was going to be. And when something like that happens, we want to have our leader in place with a reliable team of people from the 25 members here that are there to deal with the unexpected and to make sure that we can still be open tomorrow, and we're all still being true to the policies that we all agreed to do. And that's this co-op executive. So, as I was saying, we're going to have a delegate, and the delegate represents all 25 of us in this circle on whatever other circle that comes up. And the first obvious circle that we see here, of course, is the board of directors. So, sociocracy, the circle within our Cafe Libre, we have 25 members. Us 25 members are going to decide from amongst ourselves who will be the leader. And when we ask who will be the leader, we'll also ask if we'll get a list of candidates. So we'll have candidates 1, 2, and 3. And of candidates 1, 2, and 3, we'll then go around and we'll ask who wants, is everybody okay with candidate A? Is anybody not okay with candidate A? And if we got somebody who's not okay with candidate A, okay, we move on to the next person. Everybody okay with candidate B? Anybody not okay with candidate B? Same candidate C or 3. Do we have who's okay with candidate C and who is not okay with candidate C? And if we have, and the goal is to get the person that A has the most yes, we can get behind this person, we can support them, and B have the fewest I can't get behind this person. And if we may end up in a scenario where we have no one single individual who, like, everybody is like, yes, I can get behind this person. And so then we go around and say, okay, well, for candidate A, there were like 2 people who wouldn't want to get behind them. For candidate B, we had 5 people, and for candidate C, we had 7. So for candidate 2, of the 2 people who couldn't get behind candidate A, what is it about candidate A that is preventing you from their support? And what can we do to address that? Would it help you if we paired them up with somebody else? Or is it an experience issue? What if they signed up for a course? That sort of thing. We do what it takes in order to address the objections until we get somebody that nobody objects to, and then they become our leader. And that's the basics of that. And then we got a delegate through the same process. Do we trust person A, B, or C? And we eventually end up on person, say, B for the delegate, and that delegate will then represent us on the board of directors. And the board of directors is going to operate on the similar sort of basis of sociocracy. So the board of directors is never going to be able to do something that the delegate from this circle doesn't consent to. And in the same way, because we have community members over here as well, who are also owners of this business, they're going to elect somebody from amongst them to represent their interests on the board of directors, to represent the community members and the community, hopefully at large, interests on the board of directors that's running this enterprise. And that community member is also going to sit on the sociocracy circle. They're really going to kind of sit over here, but the reason why they're in this inner circle and not this outer circle is because they're going to be a part of the executive team. So, during the week when we get a curveball and there's a team of people that are there to deal with the curveball, the community member has an opportunity to be a part of that circle of people that are dealing with the curveball, and to provide, their expertise, their experience. I imagine that the community members will often be either lay professionals, or not lay professionals, it's an oxymoron, but like professionals from the community who have a full-time job and something else, so they're not working at VAWMA, but they support VAWMA, but they have expertise. Or they're a retiree. They used to run businesses, but now they're retired, and in doing so, they don't want to run a business anymore, but they don't mind being a part of the board of directors and offering their expertise as it comes up. So, anyway, community involvement gets all connected, and then we break down our Cafe Libre into different groups here. So we're going to have bakers, cooks, floor staff. This can be like general customer service, our cleaning and maintenance crew, and our bookkeeping staff. These are just the people that it makes sense to me that we would need in order to run this business from the get-go. And as you can see, they kind of create their own little circles. This is primarily for the purposes of scheduling and purchasing. So like the bakers are going to be scheduling amongst themselves. It doesn't make sense that the baker's schedule will be tied into, say, the floor staff's scheduling, because they're in completely different parts of the building. For one, they do completely different jobs for two, and so these people over here can look at the calendar, look at their staff needs, and figure out their scheduling. And these people over here, the bakers, can sit down, look at their calendars, and figuring out what their staff needs are, and then figure out their scheduling together. And same with the cooks. And as well as the cleaning staff and the bookkeepers. And so as we break ourselves down into sort of like component circles that kind of look after our little areas, we're also going to have what natural grouping of circles. So like the cooks here would select from amongst themselves somebody that they can all agree is like, yeah, person A is going to be a good I don't know what we call them, lead, head cook, maybe the chef, the person who sets the menu, creates the menu, sets the prices, or works as part of with the crew of people that are going to be setting the price, provides input for all that, and does the purchasing for the supplies when we get low. And that can be a single person. Maybe it's floats. Maybe 1 week it's person A. Maybe 1 week it's person B. And whatever it is, whoever that person is decided on by the cooks that are going to be doing the cooking. And that same principle applies for the floor staff, for the bakers, for the bookkeepers, and the maintenance staff there. And so we're going to create purchasers here who are going to be our leads, if you will. And they're going to take track of inventory and stuff. So everybody's going to be keeping track of inventory here. So the front staff maybe keep track of like how many cups, to-go cups we have. The cooks keep track of like how much, I don't know, bacon and eggs we've got. The bakers keep track of how much bread that they've made. Both for the front staff, because we'll sell bread out front, and for the cooks, because we'll take the bread that we make and we'll turn it into toast that we sell with our breakfasts. Because why not? We're a breakfast establishment. And then of course the cleaning staff will keep track of like how much toilet paper we have, how much cleaning supplies we need, and bookkeeping, same deal. They keep track of like whatever supplies they keep track of. And when they need to buy more, one of the two of these guys will be delegated as the person that then goes to the leader. Hello here. And the leader then goes to the treasurer, who controls all the money of this business, and says to the treasurer, "Hey, my purchasing departments, my people, my cooks need bacon, my bakers need flour, my bookkeepers need books, my cleaning staff need toilet paper, my front staff need cups, and this is how much it's going to cost." And the treasurer's going to be say thank you very much, and I don't know how it is we'll do it exactly. We may have like charge accounts and charge cards, or like debit cards for like specific accounts, and then we'll like fill those accounts up with money as we need them, or that it'll be access to one account but it'll be like a limit on that card, or however it works. These people, the purchasers that need to buy stuff, will either get the money, or the leader will do it as the delegate, or however it works. We get the stuff, we get the money to get the stuff, and then we get the stuff. And we carry it out. So there is a dependence, there is a relationship between everybody here, because again, when we're up and running, we may be dealing with like thousands, tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands, millions of dollars potentially, especially when we get several cooperative businesses up and running off the ground. And in a scenario like that, we don't want to have just anybody being able to walk into our bank accounts and walk away with whatever they want. We need to make sure that this stuff is kept safe. And to do that, we set up these series of relationships where we make sure that the money that is being used the way it's supposed to. And then when we do make a profit, when we do make a surplus, we distribute that money based on the patronage thing that we talked about previously. So I'm going to take a pause there, and so I see that we have a number of different things here in our comment section, and I'm just going to take a quick look what we're talking about here. Sarcassotron with some information about the sociocracy. Wow, that explanation was a lot cleaner than most of the stuff I've looked up about consensus decision making. It's what I'm trying to wrap my brain around, and I'm just bringing everybody along for the journey. So as I'm able to wrap my brain around what it is that they're doing, I'll hopefully everyone else to wrap their brains around it as well. Glad to do it. Um, Oh yes, voting for the leader candidate, is it a private thing? I don't want to be an awkward naysayer for only one candidate, and that is part of the sociocracy thing. In terms of when it comes for voting for president, treasurer, and secretary on the board of directors, I imagine it'll be a secret ballot. And it'll be from a list of candidates that'll be a mixture of dedicated members and or community members, and by virtue of being a member you can stand for representation. So so with regards to the president, the treasurer, and the secretary positions, those would be secret ballot. And I imagine it depends on how many community members we have to start. If we have only 6 or a dozen community members at the very beginning, we might use sociocracy to determine who the community member representative on the board of directors will be. But if we grow and we get to thousands of community members, then at that point I think we would switch to a secret ballot for community members as well, and you would just by virtue of being a community member, you would be eligible to stand as for election to board of directors, and then we'd populate our board of directors equal to the amount of businesses that we have. So if we have, for example, 6 businesses that we're running under the umbrella of VAWMA, then we're going to have 6 community members on the board of directors to mirror the 6 dedicated members on the board of directors that are representing those businesses on the board of directors. And we'll get to that in this particular presentation. We'll kind of give some visual representation for that. With regards to the dedicated circle, I'm afraid to say that if you have an objection, one of the requirements of participation in sociocracy is actually letting your views be known. And this is the other side, I guess, of consent-based decision making, is that if you have an objection, nobody can read your mind, and you have to be true to yourself. If it's not something you can live with, if it's genuinely not a person you trust in a leadership position, and it would be a deal breaker for you, then this is your opportunity to stand up and say, hey, this is a deal breaker for me, but I have reasons. And here are my reasons. Here are my objections. If you can address my objections, then maybe we can move forward. If you can't, then the question then falls to me. Is this something that I can live with? Is it good enough for now and safe enough to move forward? Or is this truly something that is a deal breaker for me? And maybe for you at that point, that's the question as a member of the circle. If you're the person number 25 out of 25, and everybody at 24 out of 25 are all on board for the leader, but you're the one lone holdout. It's just I just can't, based on everything I know about this person, I can't get behind them. It's voluntary at that point. I think that would probably begin the process for you, that this would be maybe this isn't the right fit for me at this time. And we would have exit strategies for our dedicated members. That's one of the things that we would build into the bylaws. And maybe after we're done the 7 cooperative principle, we'll deal with the ramifications of all this stuff. But within the circle, it's a very open and transparent process. It's a relational process. And hopefully, within the circle of 25 people, we're all going to be friends or friends of friends, which comes with it a little bit of a... I don't want to be that guy where I'm poo-pooing on my friends, but at the same time, hopefully you have enough of a relationship and respect with your friends that if you have an objection, that it can be brought up amongst your friends honestly, and it can be dealt with honestly and addressed honestly. So, yeah. If nothing else, practicing sociocracy will get people comfortable with a certain level of candor. Yeah, I would think that. Sarcastotron was recently listening to someone from the Netherlands who said she thought their direct style of speaking helps their government work extra efficiently or effectively. Yeah, I can imagine. I struggle with feeling like it's safe enough for me to say the things that I actually think sometimes. And there are reasons for that, and I'm trying to work past all that. But I've always admired people that have that ability to call a spade in a public forum. That's something that I've always aspired to be able to do, is to call a spade. And one of the things I'm hoping, one of the things that I'm seeing is that sociocracy definitely encourages that. And so we're going to pick up now, and we're going to move on to the next portion of what it is that we're doing here with the Voluntary Association for Work and Mutual Aid, Cafe Libre, because as we're talking about autonomy and independence, it's important for us to recognize that these group of frontline workers, the customer service people, the wait staff, the bus boys, bus persons, the people running the drive-thru, they just naturally work in and amongst themselves, and they're gonna create choose from amongst themselves a leader, the purchaser, the person that is responsible for like standing out with the schedule, the calendar, and saying, okay, everybody, we need 4 people working on Monday from 6 to 10. Who's available and who wants to work? Who wants to be one of those people working? And then everybody stands around the calendar and they opt in until everybody who wants to opt in has opted in. And then when we have shifts left over, we then stand around and say, okay, everybody, starting with who's worked the least, who wants to pick up this shift? Because we need 4 people, we only have 3, we need a 4th person on to make this work. Who can work? Who's available to work this Monday shift at from 6 to 10? And then we go in reverse order with everybody who didn't necessarily opt in because they wanted to, but can opt in because they're available and they're able, and they're not objecting to it. It's not a deal breaker for them. And we go around until we get as many of the shifts that are left over that are fulfilled. But let's say that we still have the odd shift left over. Still, we need a 4th person for Monday morning at 6 a.m. because the dedicated members that are part of this group have all opted in. Everybody who wants to work that shift is working that. Everybody who's left over isn't available. So now what do? Well, we're going to turn to our community, and we're going to start with our community members first. We're going to post internally, but we'll also post on job sites. Job available, barista. Want to work in the best place of it ever, Cafe Libre. Come work for us. We pay living wages. We have benefits. Good times. Come. And so we're going to hire somebody to work the 6 a.m. shift, and they're going to technically be our employee to begin with. But because we're a cooperative, and we are dedicated to being a cooperative, and we are dedicated to emancipating as many of our members from wage slavery as possible, we're going to give them the opportunity to, instead of being our employee, to becoming a member of what it is that we're doing. So this is where we're going to introduce union membership. So this is where the $300 buy-in for being a union member of our cooperative comes into play. And remember, that's the same price as you get over here for the community member. Hello. And that's going to give these people that we hire to fill the positions that the dedicated members just plain don't want to work, and they don't have to work it. They are owners. They're not on compulsion. We're not going to fire you if you're a dedicated member and you don't want to work a shift. That's not how this works. You are an owner. You don't get fired. And and so as a union member, you don't necessarily get a guaranteed shift. You get the shifts that are available, and but you would still get patronage, and you would still be a member. So all these dedicated members, they form the circle that runs this place. As a union member, you don't get to sit on that circle. You don't get to be a part of the decision-making process necessarily. But if there's we're not completely unfair. We recognize that even though you've been hired by us, and even though you aren't a dedicated member of the business, that your voice and your opinion is valid and counts for something. So if we're going to say to our union members, you know what, we recognize that you as union members have a voice, that you and that voice and a perspective, and that voice and perspective is valid. We're going to give the union members collectively a seat on our circle. So no one individual union member can necessarily what's the word? Have their views exclusively represented on the circle, but you can be a part of a circle within a circle, so a circle of union members who decide amongst themselves who's going to represent the union interests, the union members' interests on the circle of the Cafe Libre with the dedicated members. And that person from amongst these union members will sit on this circle here once a month, and the other members can attend and they can confer and they can talk and make sure that their delegated member is actually representing the union interests on the board of, or not the board of directors, but on the circle that runs Cafe Libre. And yeah, and that's how that works, is the plan. And so then we have these union members. They've become the backbone of the sociocracy circle that runs our union membership. And this will be made up of bakers, cooks, and various other members that we're going to get into here as we explain and expand on this idea a little bit more. Oh, mercy. I've gone and let time run away from me here. I'm only about halfway through my presentation and talking about dependence and or independence. So let me just finish up here with the union members. As these union members, who are all over here to begin with, end up deciding that they are, or end up forming their own sociocracy circle, they're going to create a delegate, again, a leader, a secretary, and a facilitator, depending on how big they are. And we're going to have a delegate, and that delegate is going to represent union interests on the board of directors. So just like the dedicated members of this business have somebody representing their interests on the board of directors, and the board of directors operating on the principles of sociocracy, this dedicated member here has the right to object to anything, any direction that the board of directors is taking the business as a whole. But same with the union member delegate. They would also have the right to sit on the board of directors and the capacity to object to the direction that the board of directors is taking the business. And but they also have the right to consent. They also have the right to buy in. So this is the point at which union membership interests are represented within the board of directors. So now I'm just going to take a moment to pause. We're kind of at a natural moment here before we get into what happens when we grow and we expand and we become multiple cooperatives. I'm just going to check the chat again to see if we have any questions. Into part 1 episode, part 2 for next week. You know what? I think that's true. I think we've hit that moment where we're going to pick this up next week. And we're going to go into this a little bit more. But because I must have done a fairly good job explaining this so far, because we don't have too many questions. But I will sum up and say this, that the whole point of the reason why we do things in the circles is so that we don't have like a cleaning and maintenance crew telling the cooks how it is that they cook their food. Coincidentally, we also don't have bakers telling the front staff, you know, which coffee cups to purchase. We don't have the front staff telling the bakers, you know, what time they have to show up for work in order to bake food. The bakers are deciding that amongst themselves. The bakers know how much bread that they need to make, and at one time the bread needs to be baked, and all that fun stuff. And they're taking care of it. And if there is a scenario where the bakers have cause to talk to the people, the customer service staff at the front of the house about something, they have a delegated person, a leader amongst the bakers that will go and talk to the leader of the front staff and say, hey, us bakers, we were getting together and we were talking and we noticed XYZ. Perhaps you guys can take that XYZ and incorporate it into what it is that you guys are doing on the front. And then this leader says, oh, golly, thank you, I'm going to spread that around. And then they spread it around amongst the different people, and it gets disseminated that way. But the floor workers are independent of the bakers. The bakers are independent of the floor workers, and yet we collaborate and work together to create tasty food that we then turns around and sell to our community members, who then patron our restaurant, what it is that we're trying to do, and pay their hard-earned money, along with the other members of the community who are not our community members. We're open to the public. Everybody's money is good at Cafe Libre, and hopefully everybody's having a good time. So that's kind of part one. We'll pick up Autonomy and Independence next week with part two, and hopefully I would just like to say thank you to everybody who's stuck around with us so for this far. And I would just like to say thank you to everybody who has contributed in our chat. Thank you, everybody, for being here, and we look forward to you next week. Don't forget to like and subscribe if you haven't already. Please feel free to leave a comment in the comment section if and when we get this uploaded to its proper format. And be sure to check out Live with Advantage, their channel on Twitch. As Kat used to say, in Dungeons and Dragons, when a player gives another player the help action, they roll with advantage. So let Kat give you the help action so that you can roll with advantage. And with regards to everything else, thank you again. You check out our VAWMA group on Facebook. That's probably the best place to be in contact with us. And look forward to seeing you all in the future. And don't forget, you're awesome.